It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how are we feeling on this Monday?
It's been a Monday, but we're getting through it. We're getting through it, and it's better now. It's better now because the music hit. Brandon Ross and I went. Here we go.
Yeah, now we're rolling. And I mean, it doesn't get better than when you get a little bit of a news drop shortly before the episode. And of course,
it would be better if it was at like 4 instead of 4:40. Like we gotta just get them moved up a little bit.
Well, I can't help you with that. That one's not on me. But big news: Lita Smith. The Steelers claiming him off of waivers from the New England Patriots. Been around a little bit, was a 6th-round pick of the Arizona Cardinals out of Virginia Tech. Alan, what can you tell me about Lita Smith and what he brings to the roster? If you feel like he'll even make the roster, is this just a camp body? What's your take on this?
I remember very clearly Lita Smith as a Virginia Tech player, and I always thought he was good. A big dude for that age. Never really kind of filled out like I think they kind of hoped he would. Like he's not that tall, but he's also not like some guards are just like heavy looking. He's not, a pretty good athlete. Ran a pretty solid 40. I think it was 5'1" something. Hasn't really got much of a chance in the NFL. Was a rookie with the Cardinals, played 10 games as a backup. I think he had a start or two there. Got cut, spent half a year on 2 different teams' practice squads, gets cut again, signed by the Packers, cut, practice squad, signed off the practice squad by the Patriots, and immediately shoved into the lineup in that horrendous Pats team last year where he was basically a jumbo tight end. So, I think he's a guy that still has some untapped potential. Obviously, 26, kind of running out of time, but I think is someone that will provide good competition for Spencer Anderson in terms of a backup guard, if that's all they're going to do at the position. I'm not going to say it's like top tier. I mean, we were talking about signing Mekhi Becton. There's a long way down the hill from there, but it's not bad. It's not bad work either.
Yeah, I was just saying, for him, at least, the way that I'd be looking at this is, to me, this is like a heck of an opportunity when you look at what Pittsburgh has lost, the amount of bodies, and they haven't added a ton yet. Like, this is the one addition that they've made to the offensive line, really. So, of course, we got the draft to get through and stuff like that, but say they don't make any more meaningful additions, he's got a pretty good shot, in my opinion, to make the roster, depending on how that goes for him. So, just in terms of the opportunity, I would be looking at the Steelers roster as one that he could certainly make. So, hey, more power to him.
Yeah, I think so. I always thought he was a good player. I'm not quite sure why it hasn't worked out, but I think he has some juice there, and I think that'll be an interesting camp competition if that's one spot for those 2 guards, because I think that's 2 pretty strong options there. Still got to take care of the swing tackle position, but we'll see what the results of that are as we move forward. I wrote about that over the weekend. You can check it out at SteelersNow.com. I wrote a whole story about the free agents out there that could be swing tackles, including DB's guy, Jedrick Wills. Put him at the top of that.
Yeah. All right, well, let's stick with the offensive line talk while we're here. You got a DM from LGO63, and he brought up 2 interesting things here for us to get into. But let's stick with the offensive line first. He mentioned the idea of trading down to acquire another pick, and that's something that obviously, like, I'm always kind of on board with. Of course, it takes 2 to tango. The board has to fall a certain way for it to make sense. You got to have that team that wants to come up. But the name that you threw at me that he threw at you was interesting. Josh Connerly, an offensive lineman, which we haven't talked about the idea of them taking tackle in the first round, like, at all. I just saw a mock draft today where they were taking Josh Simmons in the first round. I'm like, what are we doing here? Since when are the Steelers in the market for a tackle in the first round? Of course, I think that we need to see a big leap from Broderick Jones, and there's, some level of concern from some of the fan base, being that we needed to see much from Troy Fautanu last year, but I have not even thought of the idea of the Steelers taking a tackle in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't seem like they're interested in the position at all. They've given no indication that they're really even looking at O-line very much until about the third round. Charles Grant from William and Mary, someone that I've shown some interest in. He's like a day 2 pick, and he's like maybe as a tackle, maybe he's a guard, kind of on that borderline, because whether you're a tackle in the guard in the NFL really is all about your skill set and your physical abilities, and has absolutely nothing to do with where you played in college. Same thing goes with whether you're left tackle or right tackle or left guard or right guard. Should we say that again just to feel like every once in a while I got to get that out there? Yeah, okay. Charles Grant played tackle at the FCS level, probably more likely to be a guard at the NFL level, but we'll see. Some teams have different ideas about these things. Look, I don't think the idea that the Steelers would make another big addition to their offensive line is crazy or wrong thinking. Obviously, I don't think that because I argued for signing Mekhi Becton. The first round of the draft feels a bit crazy. Like, look, let's be real about tackle for a minute. Let's get real. Okay, the Steelers have 2 tackles that they used a first-round pick on that they want very badly to be their starting tackles for 10 years. But the hit rate on those positions is not that high, and both players have already had missteps, right? Broderick Jones has not played that well when he's played at times. Troy Fautanu, major injury. Assuming he comes back looking like the same player, I feel very confident about Troy Fautanu being able to be a successful right tackle. I think I would like him better at left tackle, but either way, okay. I don't know about Broderick Jones, but like the idea that one of those guys, or even both of those guys, might not stick at tackle is definitely a real thought that the Steelers should have. And that's why I wanted to sign Mekhi Becton, why DB wanted to sign Jedrick Wills, and why you wanted to sign, who was it, Zeitler?
No, Patrick Bakari.
Sorry, right. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's a real thought, and it's a good one. But when you draft a first-round pick, now you're writing off your upside. Now you're basically saying we're assuming that it's not going to work out. And I don't think I'm there with these 2 players yet.
No, me either. I actually think while it might be moderate and maybe not at like the level that people were hoping for, I thought Broderick played okay in the second half, enough for me to say like the arrow was pointing up in the right direction.
Yes, and I'm a little skeptical about the move to left tackle. I've been open about that, but like,
yeah,
if that works out to be better, look, like better than last year would be pretty good. Like, right. I think drafting I don't think drafting any offensive lineman in the first round is a bad idea, because guard, you don't have the positional value. There's maybe one guard you would legitimately want to draft in the first round anyway. Tyler Booker from Alabama. They went to Alabama and they took the quarterback out to dinner. So that tells you what they think about drafting Tyler Booker. Third round, I think, is very much on the table, especially considering what they've done at all the other positions, how deep running back and D tackle are. Even if they don't get another draft pick, I don't think it's crazy to see them taking an offensive lineman in the third round. Now you're looking at drafting a guard that would be your eventual replacement for Isaac Seumalo. Now you're looking at drafting a long-term tackle project that could immediately be your swing backup, and maybe if things don't work out with one of those guys, could eventually develop into a starter. Third round, I think I'm all in on offensive line. I don't think I can get there in the first.
Yeah, I was more in on it in free agency, to be honest with you. Like, that's why I mentioned Bakari, a guy that could play guard, but also gave you tackle assurance. They would probably be an upgrade on Mason McCormick, but maybe there's some competition there, at least with the name that I brought up. But, I don't think it would be the worst thing. Like, I don't think McCormick played so well where he had to be penned in as a starter. And then you go through this year, say Isaac Seumalo does walk, then McCormick's back there. I know that, like, sides, especially for the guards, aren't as meaningful, but it was the left side that he did play in college, so maybe he replaces Seumalo at the left guard spot. You have the right guard that you had already brought in, and Broderick and Troy have worked out, and obviously Zach Frazier in the middle. And that was kind of like my plan. Now, investing in it high in the draft, certainly not something that I've given much thought or can get on board with, but I'm not like erasing that from them investing in it at all. Third round, even though I looked at, just because without having that second, now I know this mentioned like a trade down scenario, so assuming we're going based off this too, maybe it's a little bit different, but I really haven't even thought about it. I've thought like maybe 5th, 6th round is when they would invest in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, Charles Grant's probably a day 3 pick. They brought in Wyatt Milam. I'm sorry, day 2 pick, brought in Wyatt Milam from West Virginia. It's a free visit, but I mean, they didn't bring in Sean Martin, who's a defensive tackle from West Virginia. So, like, it means something that they had that interest. He's a day 2, round 3 pick, probably. So I think Tate Ratledge, they were at the Georgia Pro Day. He's a day 2 or day 3 guard. I'm sorry, day 2 guard, round 2 or round 3. So I think there's enough going on there that I think offensive line in round 3, whether or not they trade back, but especially if they trade back, becomes realistic.
Certainly conversation within there. All right, well, let's stick with that too. Mentioned Broderick within there, Robert Kelly. We'll come back to LG here in a second, but Robert Kelly had a question that kind of ties in nicely here. Said, "Hey guys, love the show. Best analysis on the block. If Broderick Jones does not take off this year, could you see the Steelers' mentality in this year's draft to take a tackle to push Jones or replace him and probably slide Broad inside to replace Isaac in 2026. So basically the idea being, is it on your radar at all that Broderick Jones could end up sliding inside to guard if things fail at tackle this year?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, guards are just guys that weren't good enough to be tackle. That's the way offensive line works. So, like, if it doesn't work out at tackle, absolutely they'll try him at guard. Now, he's got to put on some weight. I mean, he's a pretty slender tackle as it is. And maybe he doesn't want to do that. And maybe they'd just be better off cutting bait or trading him or something like that. I don't know. But if I'm running the team and I've got Broderick Jones and he's not cutting it at tackle, absolutely I'm going to try him at guard. Why not? Same thing with Fautanu. I mean, I think he will be fine, but we don't know. Maybe this knee injury sapped some of his athleticism and explosiveness, and he's having a hard time backpedaling. And put him inside. I mean, we saw it with Becton. We've seen it with a number of these guys over and over again. Tevin Jenkins, Elijah Vera Tucker, was the one from Texas. There's a ton of these guys that get drafted as tackles that end up playing corner or end up playing guard and doing a good job of it.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been mentioned a couple times, I feel like, this offseason. And again, just like the development path that we've been on here and feeling like he's played the best ball that he played was in the last half of last season. So, like, while I understand why the questions are there, and there's certainly got to be some concern about him now switching sides too, like, I would argue that I feel like the talk should have been put on pause because we have no clue what we're going to see at left tackle. And like I just said, I feel like he played better in the second half of last season than at any point that we'd seen. So I think if the arrow is pointing up for the player, just let it point up for him at tackle and let's see how things go.
Sam Cosme was the Texas.
Oh, right. Yeah. Just had a nice little payday in Washington too.
Yeah.
Turned into one of the better
guys.
Like,
this is definitely something that every team that has a tackle that is struggling should be thinking of. I think the Steelers are as well. But, like, I'm with you. I don't think, like, that's at the top of their mind right now. I mean, they're saying we're going to move him to left tackle. You don't move him to left tackle unless you think he was doing a bang-up job at right tackle because you're giving him a harder, more difficult assignment. A harder, more important assignment, I should say. So, like, I don't think that's where the Steelers are thinking at this moment, but it certainly should be in the back of their head.
Yeah, I'd say going the opposite direction. They have enough faith in him to move him over to the blind side, and we'll see who it's going to be protecting for. We'll get to that in a second here, but I wanted to go back to LG just because he mentioned another name within there that we haven't talked a lot about, but I really like in this running back class. That's DJ Giddins. Will be coming in for a top 30 if he hasn't already. I know it was reported that he would be. I don't know if he's actually been here yet, but wanted to get your thoughts on him, and then as well as while we're on the topic of talking about top 30s here, a couple defensive tackles that are probably, again, maybe within that round 3 or start of day 3. Joshua Farmer out of Florida State, and then Elijah Roberts just reported today, which I think is a really interesting one, who's probably more of a day 3 guy, but wanted to get your thoughts on kind of that group of players that we're seeing brought in for top 30s.
Yeah, where are we going first? Let's go D tackle first. Either the Steelers are not really going to pick a defensive tackle in the first round, which I don't believe, or the Steelers are setting themselves up to double dip at defensive tackle. Because when you look at the visits that they're taking, these top 30 visits that are coming into Pittsburgh, Joshua Farmer, 3rd round pick, Florida State. Elijah Roberts, SMU, probably a 4th round pick. JJ Pegues, Ole Miss, probably a 4th-round pick, maybe a 5th-round pick. Yaya Black, Iowa, 5th-round pick, maybe a 6th-round pick. They met with Vernon Broughton on a combine formal from Texas, probably a 5th or a 6th-round pick. And so they had they were at the Alabama Pro Day where Tim Smith, probably a 6th or 7th-round pick. Nazir Stackhouse from Georgia at their Pro Day, 6th or a 7th-round pick. And so it sure seems like they're setting themselves up to double dip at D tackle to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because like I know that we haven't seen like the interest has been there prior to top 30s in terms of the guys at the top of the class. I know a lot of people are going to make a lot about obviously the Kenneth Grant stuff and who was there, who wasn't there for him, and if he's still in play or whatever. Yes, he's absolutely still in play for them. But I expect a lot of those top guys that we're talking about there to also come in for top 30 visits, and then we'll have an even more clear picture. I'm thinking more towards the line of thinking that you mentioned there with this being a double dip position as opposed to them not investing early, but looking at the later guys. Like my mind immediately goes to they want one early and they want one middle to late.
Yeah. Now, if you're sitting at home wondering, man, how does Alan remember who all these visits were? I don't. Go to SteelersNow.com. Look at the draft big board. Okay. We have little logos next to every name about who they met with at the Senior Bowl, who they met with at the Shrine Bowl, who they had combine formals with, where Tomlin has been to pro days, who's coming in for top 30 visits, and where assistant coaches were out at pro days. It's a great tool. Go use it. I use it all the time. Mostly I built the tool so that I can use it. I just put it on the website so you all can see it too. So go check it out.
Yeah, I used it last year on my final mock where I didn't have a single pick correct for the Steelers.
Nice.
Graham Barton was my final pick that I went with, who I thought was going to be their first round selection.
I had Amarius Mims because I thought Fautanu would be gone.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, hey, if they would have told me beforehand Fautanu was going to fall and be on the board, maybe I wouldn't have gone.
At least I had the position correct. I get half credit for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. At least for me. Not that it matters, but I will definitely give you half credit. The other name I mentioned there, obviously different position, but DJ Giddins, we know that they're scouring the running back market, especially within the draft too. What do we make of him, his fit, and the interest in him?
Yeah, it seems like they are sticking with the type. Like they got a small, fast guy in Warren. They got a small, fast guy in Gainwell. And most of the interest in running backs in this class, and I say that there have been some, like Ollie Gordon's coming in for a 30 visit. They formal him at the combine, and they met with him at the Senior Bowl. And he's probably the biggest, stiffest, uprightest running back in this draft class. But a lot of smaller guys, Dylan Sampson. You can include Bashul Tootin in that. And so I think I would put DJ Giddins right in that group. Another small, fast, outside zone, wide zone runner. It just seems like that's what they're after in this draft. I think I would prefer a bigger guy. I would be aiming more towards like Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Cam Scatabo, but that's not where their interest has been so far. We'll see if it continues that way.
Yeah, in terms of like, I understand
throw
what
Damian
you're
Martinez
saying
in that group that I said.
I really like
because I freaking love him.
Yeah, I love Damian Martinez too. If that's the route that they were going, that's probably the back that I'm choosing. Yeah, I mean, Giddins to me is I really like the player. What did he measure in at? Are his measurements from like they way off from what he actually came in at? 6 foot flat, 212 pounds was what it shows him as here on the website. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's RAS. So he's not as small as like Warren and those guys, but like it's all about the speed. 4.43, one of the fastest running backs in the class, might be the fastest running back in the class. And crazy athletic score, almost at a 40-inch vertical. That's like cornerback wide receiver stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I love the player. I think he's one of the most underrated backs, but if you were trying to build a room of like guys that are all kind of like different types, I think I would probably question it a little bit and say that there's probably better fits that they could get out there, but certainly wouldn't hate if they added him to this running back room. I think he's does raise
bigger than what they have, but he's still like more of a finesse speed back, I would say.
We knew that they were going to be interested in running backs, but they added Gainwell with Cordell Patterson still on the roster. Do you think that it's going to stay that way? Do you expect Cordell Patterson to end up being on this roster?
Probably not, but there's no like reason to preemptively cut him. Like,
Yeah.
they can make someone beat him. Like, it doesn't cost them anything. They're not going to pay Cordell Patterson a dime between now and September 5th. So,
Yeah.
like, there's no reason not to.
The roster construction, obviously already has kind of taken shape through free agency here. We'll continue to see it through the draft. But one big domino that we're waiting to fall is the quarterback thing. And your morning rush this morning was about, who would benefit and who would not from Aaron Rodgers becoming a Pittsburgh Steeler. And, to kind of take that in this note now, including the way that they would go about conducting business if they did get Aaron Rodgers, I think that's an interesting topic to bring up. So, like, who do you start targeting if Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback? We got a question about this, more so about, like, I guess, free agency, but also bringing in the draft. Stephen 116th gave us $5. So we appreciate that. $5 super chat on Friday's episode, and said, don't you think that we need a receiver that can get open quick? Not saying this player, but like a Deontay Johnson, in order for the QB to get the ball out fast. We know how much Aaron likes to do that. Nothing but long balls, take a while to develop. Love the show. Really enjoying SN Plus. So shout out to SN Plus from Steven as well in the comments. But yeah, Alan, say Aaron Rodgers does become the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. How do you kind of go about building out the rest of this roster, specifically the receiver room, to make sense?
Sign Alan Lazard. Oh, wait, he's already signed. Sign Devontae Adams. Oh, man, he's already signed too. I'm out of other good ideas. I've got nothing else. Though that just seems to be the only things to do when you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. You just go get those two guys.
Yeah,
is Randall Cobb still playing?
No, he retired. I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling signed somewhere as well. Yeah, I'm running out of. Yeah, I got nothing. He's with Seattle. I don't know.
And I can tell you this: played for him last year. Mike Williams is not signing up for that. I am sure. So we can just cross that name off.
Valdes-Scantling plays in Seattle, which is where Cooper Kupp signed, which was another name that I was like, makes a lot more sense if Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback than without Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that the guy doesn't exist that you need to target, but it's, to me, somebody that's not on the roster right now necessarily. And like, I don't know what year two for Roman Wilson looks like. I think Calvin Austin's a better route runner than people give him credit for. They just kind of think he's like some gadgety guy that they just tell to go deep, and that's pretty much the only two things they can do. I think he's a better route runner than that. But I think that what they need on the roster is still probably not there in terms of like that short yardage, chain moving on third down type.
The best route runner who is not on the Steelers roster is almost certainly, or not on any roster, is almost certainly Deontay Johnson. I have a hard time imagining them go down that road. Let me throw you one crazy, Smitty. Remember there was a report before the Steelers traded for DK Metcalf that the Packers were interested in trading for Metcalf. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And that the Seahawks wanted a first-round pick and either Romeo Doubs or Dontavian Wicks.
Yeah.
You remember that report? Well, the Packers never got their big physical outside receiver.
Oh.
Steelers don't have a quarterback. Packers have probably the best backup quarterback who could potentially be a starter in the NFL. Dontavian Wicks on the ESPN NFL receivers open score.
He's very good at getting open. A lot of drops, but
fourth in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Pickens for Willis and Wicks. I'm sorry. Yeah. Who says no there?
There's no picks included. This is just.
I mean, maybe
player for players.
If somebody is feeling aggrieved and wants a sixth rounder one way or the other, I'm not going to fight about it. But like, I'm making the proposal player for player. Okay, Wicks is more like that player that we're talking about that has those get open slants, quick game stuff that Rodgers is going to want to do, especially if the offensive line doesn't pan out like we were just talking about. He's not going to run for his life. He's just going to throw it, whether they're open or not. Like, you got to have somebody that can get open quickly, and that would give them a shot at a future quarterback as well. I don't know. It's an interesting.
I would say so. Wait, you're on board for acquiring Malik Willis, even if Aaron Rodgers is already in place? Like,
I was on board with acquiring Malik Willis in the 2022 draft. I mean, I think he's good.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, it's getting crowded now, but like, sure.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I like Wicks. Got to clean up the drops. I mean, if not, Aaron, he's going to be in Aaron's doghouse.
The catch score for Dontavian Wicks on ESPN, which I will say I do not like methodologically. Is that how you say that? As much as I like the way they run the open score, but his catch score is 0. that's not good. It's basically just Deontay Johnson without the headaches, is what you've gotten here. I mean, catch score is 0, Xavier Worthy. But his open score is only a 54. So like,
I like Wicks as a player. I wouldn't shut it down completely. I'm on board with trading George. I'd just be curious as to what else is out. Maybe I'm overestimating what the George Pickens.
Or maybe you just get Wicks and a pick, and you don't need Willis.
Yeah,
and replenish the draft pick stock.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where my mind is more at. After trading the 2 for DK, if you're trading George, I think I'd rather get a pick back as opposed to the 2 players in the process. And if you're getting a receiver that kind of fits what they need within the room too, I'd probably be more on board with that than the Willis idea. Again, I think that there is some intrigue with Willis, but if you're getting Aaron for this year, you got Mason as the backup, and then I want to take a shot at QB in 26 anyway. I'm probably signing up for the Wixon pick.
All right.
Say, as opposed to,
I do think there are some players in this draft class that they could look at. We've talked about it's not a great deep receivers class, but I do think if you are looking for a separator, there are a couple of guys in here that I do like. One is Jalen Noel, who is coming to Pittsburgh for a visit, or at least it's been reported that he's going to from Iowa State. We all sort of fell in love with Jaden Higgins at the Senior Bowl, and he's great, but he's just another Metcalf and Pickens. Certainly not going to solve this particular problem. I think Noel, though, his teammate, who probably did not have as good of or as eye-catching of a Senior Bowl, but was still very solid. I think he's a really good option there. And the other ones that I want to mention are even farther down the draft board that I really don't understand. Ty Felton from Maryland has like no draft hype whatsoever, and he is really good, really good hands and catch radius for not a physical guy. He's like a really slender, skinny, twitchy receiver. And then Kyle Williams from Washington State was the most open guy at the Senior Bowl. He just has nasty release. And he is always open. Is he an outside receiver? I don't know. Maybe he can be like a Z and a Deontay Johnson mold, but the dude gets open.
Yeah,
I like him, and he's all the way down like the 5th round on the mock draft database big board.
I was so mad. I'm so because that's the name I wanted to shout out. I think he is one of the. I don't understand where, especially in this receiver class, why he is ranked so low. I can't figure it out. Now I'm not going to go Chris Sims. Chris Sims put out his wide receiver rankings today. He has him as the number 2 receiver in this class.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think there's a chance that he's the best separator in the class, but I don't think he's going to end up being the second best receiver in this class.
It's him or Noel. I think he is the best separator in this class.
Yeah. So top
Bond,
5, just
Bond is pretty good separator too. His stock has really fallen. He's a guy that I think we've seen the Steelers do this a number of times where it's like that guy that's just hanging out on the draft board. It's like, who's going to be the team to take him? Isaiah Bond was being talked about as a 1st round pick at some points in this draft class. And now I think he might be in the 3rd round. If he falls to 83, I think the Steelers will make that move.
They have no problem stopping the slides.
No, they will be the slide stopper. They will be the
yeah, Chris Sims top 5 just for fun here. We can throw this out here. Travis Hunter, who he put at the top. I don't think he's going to end up playing receiver. We'll see where he goes, I guess, and how they feel about him. But Kyle Williams, number 2. Now he's the only. So this is like bracketed. Okay, so he has Travis Hunter as tier 1 NFL ready baller. His tier 2 guys, day 1 difference makers: Kyle Williams, Ted McMillan, and Jalen Noel. Are 2, 3, and 4.
Really wants guys that gets open. That's what the quarterback is telling you there, because that's what Williams and Noel are.
And then his wide receiver 5, and this is big play upside as the tier here for tier 3. Trey Harris, Ole Miss.
I mean, another big physical outside receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like the Steelers have that. So
yeah, absolutely. But two of the names mentioned on there are guys that we just talked about, and I do think would be great fits for what we're talking about. The Steelers needing if they had Kyle Williams, especially with where he potentially might go, where he's being mocked at.
If
I
you
think
get
he's going to
Kyle
end up
Williams
going
with
early.
a 5th round pick, that is like
Yeah.
skip around the room reaction as a general manager.
Yeah, absolutely. If they, man, it is similar. Like, I'm not saying that he's a Deontay Johnson. I could see them really liking him in the past. Will they now? I'm not sure. But like past regime,
I'll throw one more
they love
name
him.
out here. Ricky White from UNLV, I think, is another like deep down the draft board guy. Also a great special teamer.
Yeah, as I say, he offers that value at the very least, safe floor for what he'll provide.
And so I think that's interesting to the Steelers as well. So,
and we'll block his ass off, which we know that they'll like. So, but we'll see. But yeah, to answer the question about the receiver type that they will target, I think that is what they're looking for. Is somebody that can get open early and often, and we'll see if it's with the inclusion of George Pickens on the roster or without him. Alan, we didn't get to talk about one thing today, so for sure want to include this tomorrow. We've gotten a lot of comments recently about Arthur Smith, and we can kind of tie that in with the relationship, how we feel like it's going to work out. Should a potential what's the right word to use? I almost wanted to say consummation with Aaron Rodgers, but it like didn't feel right. I'm like, that kind of sounds gross to use right there. I almost said marriage. I didn't want to use marriage. I'm trying to think of a different word here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe
if you got a creative word to be in place of Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers coming to an agreement on signing. I want to know what that is in the comments. It can't be the two that I've already said. I want a different word used there. So let us know. But anyways, so we got to talk about Arthur Smith for sure on tomorrow's episode. So I got that in the notes already. Don't worry, comments. You definitely get your Arthur Smith fix tomorrow. But Alan, until then, tell the people they can find you.
Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account. SteelersNow.com. As mentioned, Steelers Now SN Plus is the best, and you should just go sign up for that. You get to read all the words without ads. I get the money directly from you instead of like some icky third party that no one really likes. And subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube platform. And we are again for the second time in like a week at the same spot again.
Oh boy.
So I used Justin Strelzik last time, 15,300, and Craig Wolfley. RIP Wolf, 373.
So we've gained 2 since I looked earlier, right before we started recording, because I was ready to say
Joe Haig. You gotta stop looking, because you get burned every time.
I had Joe Haig or Flozell Adams ready to be said. Who else wore number 73? I gave a shout out to Ramon last time. Was Kendall Simmons?
Kendall Simmons, 73.
Yeah,
Super Bowl winner, 2-time Super Bowl winner, I believe.
Kendall Simmons, yeah, 2-time Super Bowl winner. What am I even asking if that was his number? Of course it was his number. I know that. Anyways, there was something. You mentioned SN Plus. Yeah, you don't have to take Alan's word for SN Plus. Stephen 116th will let you know in the YouTube comments how great SN Plus is. So just read through them and get his ringing endorsement for that. We appreciate that, Stephen.
Sliding Stephen some kickbacks or something from the subscriptions.
Hey, I think so. If you're listening somewhere else and not on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, leaves a 5-star review. Subscribe over there. Really cool story that somebody wrote us, Chaz, in the comments, or the reviews, whatever you want to call them, on Apple Podcasts that I read on Friday's episode. How he was just listening to us, ended up having a conversation over some pizza in Arizona about finding our podcast and talking to another Steelers fan. So we love hearing stuff like that. So send it our way. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive over there. Wherever you are listening, leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Do the same thing on TikTok, and then you'll find me everywhere. Zachary Smith, PGH, for Alan Saunders and myself. Thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.